Okay. Good evening, councillors. Good evening, officers. Welcome, members of the public, to the planning meeting on this date, the 3rd of November. Okay, I'd like to get started, please, on the first item on the agenda, which is apologies for absence. Do we have any?
We have apologies from Councillors Clark and Councillor Eggleton, and Councillor Reisman is substituting for Councillor Clark. No, Crook.
Yeah, Councillor Crook. Okay,
Yeah,
right, thank you. Okay, thank you. So the next item is number 2, declarations of interest. Yes, Councillor Gavishak.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to declare an interest in page 5, 65 Elizabeth Road, Byron House. It's actually in the neighbouring property. I will be speaking in public participation, and the reason why it's an interest is I live here. It is the property owned by my partner Catherine. So I will speak in public participation, and during the decision and the debate on that particular item, I will leave the virtual room, and if someone could invite me back in at some point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillors? No, I see none. Let's move on then. This is to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 13th of October. Do I have a proposer for approval? Thank you, Councillor Plant, and a seconder.
Yeah.
Councillor Arlett, thank you. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to public participation. Thank you to members of the public who have joined us this evening. Just to let you know that each of you will have 2 to 3 minutes to speak. And if you are speaking about the same application, we'd be very grateful if you could just try not to make the same points as the person before you. Okay, so moving on, I'm just going to take this in the order of receipt. So the first speaker we have is Louise Pegley. If you could please turn your mic on and let us know which application you're speaking about. And from now, please. Thank you.
Hello, hi. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm talking about 18 Harcourt Close. I'm talking about it because I'm a resident on Deanfield Road, and I know many of my other neighbours feel the same about it. We have massively grave concerns about this development, and the main reasons are, I'll rattle through them, is the gross development, overdevelopment of the site, the loss of privacy and the overlooking issues that many of us will suffer, the environmental issues, particularly around the amount of trees that have been logged in the past and will be also logged going forward, and also the nuisance from 5 flats being there from noise, lighting and bin. So firstly, overdevelopment. The building is vast. I'm sure you can see that on the plans, and it will be completely overbearing. It is much bigger than any of the other properties along that road. It is built right up to number 57's boundary, I think 1 metre away. The current house that they've got planning permission for, they've decided not to build, is 6 metres away. So 1 metre away is unacceptable. It's not pretty. It's made up of lots of hard standing brick walls. There's no landscaping. Trees are being removed. No soft landscaping at all. Activity has actually already begun on the site. I've already alerted the town council about the fact the fence was moved. We've had lots of communication about that. He moved the fence, told to move it back, only moved it back part way. On the plans, you can see he's submitted recently, he has extended the site. So he'd admitted that he moved the fence clearly. And I know boundary issues isn't a material reason to object, but I think this is a material reason because he's trying to extend the size of his site to be able to fit in a huge building, which is not appropriate for that site. I also think Henley residents would quite like to know that it's okay to move your fence and pinch town council land, and the town council don't seem to mind. The big issue though for us on Deanfield Road is the overlooking. It is 5 flats with 5 balconies with no outdoor space other than their balconies. Number 57 have actually spoken to the planning officer, even though they haven't got a formal written objection, but they have raised their concerns with them. They actually rent, so I think that's why they didn't. That's 5 households, 4 which will be overlooking. We will also have overlooking issues as well. They'll be looking straight into our study. I was actually hoping to show you some pictures so you could see the site. It's on an elevation, and because it's on an elevation, it's going to be a lot worse than if maybe the flats were built on the same level as our properties. They are going to be constantly looking down. Number 57 will just not want to go into their garden. The environmental issues are obvious. Cutting down trees is not something we want to do. That site used to be woodland, and they've cut more and more trees. They're going to cut more trees that will take away our screening, that acted as protection from noise as well. We've been trying to plant trees in Henley, not take them away. We're worried also about the fact it is on an elevation, about land slippage, the impacts of removing even more trees. And he's put sheds there already, a 15-metre square shed. It's really unneighbourly what he's done. It's I think he's trying to overcome the overlooking issues, but instead he's putting these massive, ugly structures up instead. I know number 59 aren't happy with the fact there's going to be bins at the bottom of her garden. 10 bins, in fact, that are going to be looking over her. The smell's not good. Lighting, underground parking is going to be a nuisance.
Louise Pegley.
Have I finished?
Sorry. Yes. You have gone over slightly, but please don't worry. I'm sure that if you have any neighbours, they'll be able to pick up where you left off. Okay, so thank you very much. We're moving on now to the next speaker, who is Nigel Field. Please advise which property you're speaking on, and then whenever you're ready.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm also talking about number 18, Harcourt Close. So I'm a resident of Harcourt Close. I won't repeat any of the points that Louise made, but Harcourt Close is a small, quiet residential cul-de-sac with 18 houses. Number 18 is the last property. The development that's being proposed of 5 apartments will dramatically increase the traffic and throughput down the road, because the development is right at the far end of the road, so past number 18. So in terms of the increase in traffic, which is a very narrow residential road, only 5.5 metres wide, I think that will be a safety consideration. The houses on the road are large four-bedroom properties with small back gardens, and therefore the primary school age children tend to play out in the road because it's a very safe and quiet environment. And if we think about the proportional increase in traffic that this development represents, I think that will materially change the nature of the road and the safe residential area. And I think the final point for me is around parking. So again, I was hoping to show something, but if you can imagine currently the access to the proposed development is through the property of number 18. Mm-hmm. So cars will need to leave Harcourt Close at the turning head, leave the road, pass through number 18 into the area for the proposed development. Now, any overflow traffic or parking from visitors or properties or households that have more than 2 cars in that development have nowhere to park close to the development. They can't park immediately outside because that's the existing property number 18, and they will naturally overflow into the turning head, which is a major safety concern because we already have large numbers of delivery vans and council vehicles turning in that turning head. So I've got a material concern there that the overdevelopment that's being proposed on a very small site, any overflow traffic or parking is going to cause a safety issue in the turning head. And I'm happy to submit a photograph to show what I mean, if that's helpful in your considerations.
Thank you, Mr. Field. Next on our attendance list is Louise. I've got Louise Dodd, but perhaps it's a different name.
Louise Dodd from 14 Harcourt Close, and I'm speaking in respect to 18 Harcourt Close as well.
Thank you. Whenever you're ready.
not wanting to reiterate the points that the other speakers have made, I've just got a few additional points I want to raise. I do share the view that the proposed scheme is overdevelopment of the plot. The scale and massing are at odds with any other building on Harcourt, Haywoods or Deanfield. Living on Harcourt Close, we know that the steeply rising ground is challenging, but the existing townhouses use the slope to their advantage. So does this scheme to a certain extent, but because it seeks to accommodate 5 new flats, it's had to rely on an over-engineered solution of incorporating retaining walls, tiered terraces, balconies, shoehorned into every conceivable space. And the result is a scheme which overlooks itself and overlooks neighbouring properties. The outcome also means that the scheme fails to meet internal space standards. Flat 5 is 50 square metres instead of 70, for example. And nearly every flat is underprovided for in terms of external amenity space. Flat 1, for example, which provides 3 beds, has only 32 square metres now that the sheds are being retained, against a requirement of 100 square metres. And even that is compromised space, which comprises a shaded patio tucked on the eastern side of the building, overshadowed by the neighbouring copse, and a steep-sided patch of grass, which would be unusable. The applicants are our neighbours, Rosemary and Ray. They have consent for a single dwelling on the site, which we support. But unfortunately, we cannot support this latest scheme. And on behalf of the residents, we'd urge the Town Council to reject it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers for this particular property? No. Okay, so what I'll do then, if you wouldn't mind staying with us, councillors may have some questions for you. Councillors? No questions from councillors. Okay, I see none. Okay, thank you very much then. You are very, very welcome to stay and listen to the remainder of the meeting. But what I would ask you to do, please, is make sure you're continued on mute and that you turn your cameras off. You don't have to leave right now, though. We're still in public participation. Okay, so next I have Greg Walters, please. Do we have Greg Walters?
No, but I'm here, Lorna Waters. I think that.
Okay. Okay. Would you like to let us know which application you're speaking about, and then start whenever you're ready?
Yeah, I'm talking about 253 Grays Road.
Thank you.
Which is a resubmission of a proposal that was rejected by both Town Council and Oxfordshire Council recently. So the original proposal had 3 4-bedroom houses, and the new proposal does as well. So the original proposal was rejected because of overdevelopment and privacy, but the new proposal is actually pretty much the same as the existing one. There's no precedent for 3 houses on a plot this size, and the developer has done nothing to address this in the new proposal. And indeed, we believe he has exacerbated things by suggesting breaking precedent for a second time by building a semi-detached property, again, which just doesn't exist on our end of Grays Road. The view from Grays Road, if you looked in on the property, would be overbearing and will, if sort of anything, be made worse by the fact that plots 2 and 3 are now suggested in the revised proposal to be one continuous unit rather than the 3 individual properties that they had on there before. There's a serious privacy issue which we raised before, and in fact was why the original plans were rejected, about privacy and loss of light. And we don't believe that the proposal does anything to address these. In fact, the revised plans, I think if you look at them, actually means that they've moved the boundary about 80 centimetres further away from the boundary fence, which is really a very small amount. And it means that the 3-storey building will be within 1.5 metres of our fence, but also impacts our neighbours the other side. Equally, the original plans showed the proposed building extending over 1 metre beyond the equivalent size of our house, and indeed the new plans do nothing to address that. In fact, they have made a concession, if you wanted to call it that, and they've shortened the depth of the new building by 50 centimetres. So I don't think that's them perhaps being really serious about addressing the issues and why the first set of proposals was rejected. So, I mean, basically, you've seen our written submission, but I don't think anything has really changed from the first time they submitted the application. There's still space for 9 cars to park where there are actually 2 cars parking at the moment. So overcrowding, overbearing, loss of privacy, all of the things that the plan was rejected for to start with remain exactly the same in the new proposal versus the original one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other speakers about addressing this property at all? Mr. Thompson, are you speaking about the same property?
Yes, please.
Okay, yes, so go ahead.
So I would fully support all of the comments that Lorna's already made, in the sense that the resubmitted plans would still result in a cramped form of development, which would be out of keeping with the spacious and verdant character of this part of Grays Road, which was a reason given for the rejection of the original application. Additionally, another reason given to refuse the original application was that the proximity and scale of the dwelling proposed for plot 1 on the site would result in an overbearing impact on our neighbouring dwelling at 251 Grays Road and unduly harm our amenity. In the new plans, the dwelling proposed for plot 1 is of a very similar scale and is still only 3 metres from our property. So very little change there in the resubmitted plans. And I guess finally, it's a point that we've discussed about previously in relation to this, the originally submitted plans, but given the many trees that have been removed from the site, I believe that the additional landscaping currently proposed is inadequate and should include additional tree planting on the boundary between our property and plot 1 to soften the scale and proximity of any proposed new dwelling. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, do we have any questions?
Sorry, would I be able to speak on this application?
So who's speaking?
So it's John Furno.
Yes, of course. Yes, go ahead. If you could, I presume you're speaking about the same property.
It is, yeah.
Okay. So 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
There you are.
Hi. Good evening. I'm John Furno, and I'm the Land Director at Palatine Homes, speaking in support of this application at 253 Grays Road. This is a revised application following the recent refusal of our proposal to develop this site with 3 detached houses. This new scheme incorporates a number of changes to address those concerns previously raised. Previously, our application proposed 3 detached buildings to replace the existing house. Many comments were made that this was overdevelopment and that the character of the area was large detached buildings set with spacious distances to neighbouring dwellings, and the site would be better suited to 2 detached houses. Our revised proposal, although still for 3 dwellings, takes the form of just 2 detached buildings, maintaining and respecting the existing building pattern of Grays Road. The scheme has been designed to have the appearance of 2 detached houses, with plots 2 and 3 subdivided into semi-detached dwellings. When viewed from the street or whilst driving by, the 2 buildings will be read as detached houses and fully respect the character of the area. The semi-detached nature of plots 2 and 3 would not be apparent. Our proposal is fully compliant with both local and national policies and policy H4 of the neighbourhood plan, whilst also complying with the aims of the NPPF in providing additional homes and making efficient and effective use of land, ensuring that development makes optimal use of potential of the site for without compromising or adversely impacting upon the character of the area. To improve the relationship with 251, plot 1 has been reduced in depth at both ground floor and first floor and has been moved away from the boundary to provide a much larger separation distance, increasing it from 2.5 metres to 3.5 metres. Plots 2 and 3 have also been reduced in depth and width, and they too have been moved away from the boundary of 255A Grays Road to provide a much larger separation distance of circa 4 metres. It should be noted that the recent application for 3 detached houses was refused, but it was only refused on the proximity and the overbearing nature on plot 1 to 251. The planning officer was fully supportive and the committee members had no issues with the relationship with 255A Grays Road, which Mrs. Walters alluded to. I would also like to say that I have actually reached out to meet with neighbours on both sides to discuss our proposals and to try and address any concerns that they may have had. But to date, I have not had any contact from them and they have not taken me up on my offer. We believe this revised scheme addresses all concerns previously made and therefore we see no reason why you would not want to support the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Furno. Let's turn this over to councillors. Have you got any questions for any of the 3 speakers? Yes, Councillor Plants.
One to Mr. Furno, I guess. If one of the main things that came back from it last time, obviously being at that meeting, was to just go for 2 properties on the one site, will that be the next application for 2 properties or 3? I'm just wondering why you still stuck with 3, trying to masquerade 2 properties into 1 as a semi-detached, because obviously 3 properties, not 2.
Of course, obviously we are a developer and any development has to be viable for us as a company to develop. And as it stands, a 2 detached scheme on the site, it would not be viable. We're also pushed to make efficient and effective use of the land. And we believe as long as we are maintaining that character of the area, whilst providing additional housing, then that should be satisfactory.
Yes, Councillor Gavashak.
Again, another question to Mr. Furno. Could you explain what is the actual difference between this application in size and bulk compared with the previous applications that were refused?
I'm not sure I could give you actual dimensions, but plot 1 has been reduced. Well, it's obviously been moved away from the boundary by approximately 1 metre. It's been reduced in depth, so the rear projection past the back of 251 Grays Road has been reduced substantially. And obviously plots 2 and 3 have been amalgamated into 2 dwellings to look like a detached house and actually moved away from 255A. Even though there was no concern with that relationship, we have addressed the spaciousness by moving it away and creating a more spacious feel. So, and that has actually also been reduced in depth as well.
Well, I'm not wanting to get into a debate about this. From what I've looked at the plans, the actual bulk of the plans submitted now is approximately the same size as the bulk that was submitted before. I invite you to comment on that, please.
Yeah, of course. The character of Grays Road and the surrounding area is of detached buildings. And if you drive along Grays Road, there is a whole host of size dwellings along there, both narrow, both wide, both tall, both low. And that is the character of the area. We are trying to mirror that with our proposal. So although you say that the bulk is, as you say it is, that is no different to the character, or it's even smaller than a lot of the dwellings along Grays Road, even though it is subdivided into 2 dwellings.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Plant.
Well, that's okay. I'll save it for the comments later. It's fine.
Okay, right. Any other councillors wish to speak? No. Okay. Okay then, Mr. Pratt. If you'd just like to state which application you're speaking to, and then whenever you're ready, please.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, good evening. My name is Philip Pratt. I'm speaking about 44 St Mark's Road, which I am the owner of, and you'll be discussing this evening. I'm aware that you've received 2 written objections to the application, so I want to talk in support of the application. Both those objections were primarily on the basis of loss of privacy and loss of light. When we submitted the application and when they were drawn up the applications, we were very aware of these points, and we took great care to try and avoid loss of privacy, loss of light, but also overlooking issues. One of the objections states that the proposed plans will substantially increase the height of the property and therefore loss of light. In fact, the proposed increase in terms of the property is 60 centimetres, and even this increase, the height of the property is going to be still considerably lower than both of our neighbours who have both raised objections at number 42 and number 46. With regards to objection to 42 concerning loss of light, today there is currently 5 metres between our residents and the residents at number 42, and there's approximately 7 metres between the property and number 42 in terms of rooms which have windows that face our property. As part of their objection submission, they submitted photo 1 labelled view from the back of the garden, and if you had an opportunity to look at that, you'd clearly see there's substantial difference between, or distance between, our property and that of our neighbours, and that remains unchanged in the proposed plans, as does the entire footprint of the property. There is actually no change in terms of footprint whatsoever, and as such we don't think that will have a detrimental effect to either light or privacy. Just finally, to conclude, our current property is on St Mark's Road, which is obviously, there's a lot of Victorian properties on St Mark's Road and we're actually surrounded by them. However, our property was built in 1950s, and from a front aspect it is, I'd say, quite ugly compared to most of the others. We call it the ugly house, and we believe that the proposed plans will be much more in keeping with the character of the surrounding properties. We're going to change from sort of concrete tiles to slate roof, etc., etc. And as such, we hope that with these changes, that the planning committee will be able to support our application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Pratt. Councillors, do we have any questions for Mr. Pratt? No, I see none. Okay, thank you very much for participating, Mr. Pratt. You're welcome to stay with us if you could just turn your camera off as well. Thank you. Councillors, let's move on in the agenda now to plans and...
Councillor Thompson, yes. I'm very sorry to interrupt, but I did register to speak on 2 applications, and I thought it
I beg your pardon.
Be cleaner just to let us deal with the 253 one first of all.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Thank you. Again, I'll try and keep it brief. So this relates to another proposed development that is adjacent to my property at 251 Grays Road. So I'd like to speak against that planning application at 2A Wootton Road, so just around the corner from me. So my primary concerns are that the combination of the height and size means that the proposed dwelling will be overbearing and over-dominant on the street scene, and would be overbearing on our rear outlook and garden. I think it's worth noting that this part of Wootton Road, so sort of from numbers 1 through to 4, is characterised by chalet bungalows with low eaves of under 3 metres and a maximum ridge height of 7.5 metres. And a bungalow actually sits directly opposite the site. The proposed dwelling has an eaves height of 5.5 metres and a ridge of 8.5 metres. And I think together with its length extending the full width of the plot, it will dominate the street scene. The application also makes reference to properties close by on Grays Road and St Andrews Road, but I think this ignores the scale and design of Wootton Road immediately adjacent and opposite the site, which is the context in which the new dwelling will be viewed. And I think there is a need to respect the spacious character of neighbouring dwellings and the prevailing scale of them. And finally, I would request that any development be moved further away from the mutual boundary with my property at 251 Grays Road to allow for a landscape buffer of adequate width to reduce the scale of the 2-storey elevation on our rear outlook and garden. Thank you. Sorry, just to finish, I did submit comments, but it was only an hour or so before the meeting started, so they may not have been time for them to be circulated.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thompson. Yes, Councillor Plant, you have a question for Mr. Thompson?
Yeah, just to check, Mr. Thompson. So you are behind this property, so its garden will back onto yours, as it were.
And to the, I guess to the side of it.
Okay.
So the back of my garden is where the property is situated.
Okay, yeah, no, fine. Just because obviously one of the recommendations from the pre-application planning advice was the actual property should be moved further back from the road on its own site, and I was just checking that obviously wouldn't make things worse for yourself, but I guess that wouldn't if you're adjacent to it rather than behind it.
Yes, it would have make things worse for myself if it wasn't.
Okay, obviously, because that was the advice actually from pre-app, was to
Yes.
move it back rather than obviously further forward. But,
yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, we do have actually, forgive me, Councillor Gavshak, you did say at the start of the meeting you wanted to speak to an application. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, very much. I'd like to speak to the application, which is on page 5 of your agenda, which is, it's actually Byron House, not Brian House, Byron House, 65 Elizabeth Road. And as I said at the beginning of the meeting, I have declared a substantial interest, and when this is debated and voted on, I will leave the room. It is the property of my partner, Catherine Notaris, and it's the house that I live in. So therefore, I'd like to speak to this. I would like this planning application refused for a number of reasons, but I will deal with, well, the primary one, and there are other supplementary ones as well. A little bit of history. This building, which is in our neighbouring property, is actually an infill development, and it was built in 2008, having it was refused permission at SODC, and then it went to the inspector to appeal, and the appeal was granted in 2006. So it's an infill development. And we have a substantial number of windows that look over this property to the south. In the inspector's decision, he specifically stated that, in fact, he conditioned that there should be no windows in the flank wall of this property. And I'm just going to quote from the inspector's report, in which he said, and I quote in paragraph 7, there will be no windows in the flank wall of the new house. There is a window in the flank wall. He reiterates in paragraph 10, due to the blank flank wall of the new house. So again, he reiterates that it's a blank flank wall. He also says later on in 10, there will be no direct window to window overlooking. Well, because there is a window in these plans, there will be direct window to window overlooking. And finally, in the conclusion, sorry, Chair.
Kath, can you please mute the guest, please, and turn the camera off if possible.
Thank you, Chair. And in the conclusion, he says, I further condition the preventing the insertion of new windows in the north and south facing walls of the new house. So he specifically prohibited a window in the flank walls. These plans have a window in the flank wall. So therefore, on those grounds alone, these plans should be refused. But I will move on. The extension
you haven't got very long left, so if you could sum up.
I will be very quick, but I was interrupted, Chair, so I will do it.
For 2 seconds.
I will just go for the main points. The extension is 4 meters beyond the existing building line, and it comes within 1 meter of our boundary. It's about half a meter, actually. We're asking for windows to be removed. Now, the other main point is that because we have a lot of windows on the south, I don't know what that was.
Sorry, carry on.
Right, sorry. This is a single-story extension out the back with roof lights, and in our submission, we would be able, from our bedroom, to look directly through the roof lights into the kitchen, and also the neighbours in the kitchen would be able to look directly into our bedroom windows. The other thing is, because we are on the second floor on the bedroom and the kitchen is on the first floor, light would spill out of the roof lights towards our property. So therefore, in conclusion, I would ask you to refuse this planning application. And if it's refused, I would like you to call it in, because these plans go against a Department of Inspectors conditioning of the build of this house. So it really is a very important application and would set a very important precedent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Gavashak. Any questions? Yes, Councillor Arlott.
Just one question. When my neighbour did an extension, they did come and talk to me what they were proposing to do. Have these neighbours spoken to you, Councillor Gavashak, on the application?
The answer is yes. They have, sorry, we're getting noises off as well. Sorry, yes, we've got very good relationships with the neighbours. They came round and showed us the plans. We've submitted exactly the same comments that we have, that I've explained to you this evening, to them, and they have said they are not going to change the plans at all.
Okay.
So whether they will or not is well, it's for them to decide. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, let's move on, councillors, to the next part of the agenda now, which is item number 5, plans amended. And as with all of the applications this evening, I will ask our planning officer, Jodie Rimes, to give her observations before each discussion or proposal motions. Okay, so P20 SO740, it's a full application and it's 18 Harcourt Close. Jodie.
Okay, so considering these amended plans, I do not think they would address your previous concerns. They haven't altered the size and bulk of the proposed development, and the removal of the window from flat 4 is southwest facing and therefore would not address overlooking properties on Deanfield Road. We could refer to a number of planning policies in our observations, including design policies within the core strategy and local plan. Policy CSQ3 states that planning permission will be granted for new development that is of a scale, type and density appropriate to the site and its setting. We could also refer to policy D4 with regards to privacy and daylight of the neighbouring properties. It states that development will not be permitted if it would unacceptably harm the amenities of neighbouring properties through loss of privacy, daylight or sunlight. In terms of lack of parking, policy D2 of the local plan states that planning permission will not be granted for developments that fail to incorporate adequate, safe and secure parking for vehicles. So there's a number of policies that we could refer to in our observations.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jodie. Any proposals? Yes, Councillor Plant. You could switch your mute back on. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, refusal, and I think we can pretty much throw the book at this one again. They haven't come back with any alterations that make it viable, given our previous grounds for refusal and the comments that exactly have just been reiterated there by our brilliant Jodie.
Okay,
So
thank you. Councillor Gavashak, are you seconding?
I will second that. Just a few comments. I mean, they are the our concerns last time as well, but we also want to add the comment made by Louise about space standards. Apparently, it contravenes the size of the development. But I think like Lawrence, we're saying that we'll leave Jodie to come up with as many things as she possibly can in planning reasons to actually refuse this. And of course, it will be a call in at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, councillors, we have a motion for refusal. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak before we put this to the vote? No, I see none then. So all those in favour, please. And all those against. And Councillor Arlett is abstaining.
Could you just put, I didn't take any part in the debate as well, please, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. That's carried. Okay, moving on then to the second application, which is P20 S2103. It's a full application and it's land to the rear of Crossways on the Reading Road. Jodie.
So the committee unanimously recommended refusal for a number of reasons when this was discussed in September. I think the principle of those objections still stands. It's on the edge of the settlement of Shiplake. It's not an allocated site within the development plan, and it can't be considered a infill site. So I could list the policies again. Additional information has been submitted with this amended plan, including a drainage statement regards to the preferred surface water disposal solution for the site. The EA and the South Vale drainage officer currently have holding objections and they haven't responded yet to the amended plans. Thames Water have removed their objections with regards to the drainage. They've also included a tree report, but again, there's no updated comments from forestry officer or from the highways, but I think our points would still stand.
Thank you, Jodie. Councillor Gavishak, you have a proposal for us?
Yes, I'd like to propose refusal on all of the grounds that we did before. And if seconded, I'll just expand on one further point, please.
Yes, Councillor Plant, you seconding? Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Gavishak, proceed.
I would like a paragraph added at the end, specifically to do with the drainage of it. We all know that the history of the site next door, Thames Farm, has now become problematic in relation to sinkholes, and they're having to drain off an enormous amount of water in the land into natural brooks, which end up with the Thames. Now, this has got to be wrong. This has got to be wrong from an environmental point of view, that we're gerrymandering, that's the word, gerrymandering an application to shoehorn houses onto unsuitable sites. The idea that you have to take away surface water in order for the houses to be stable is a perfectly sensible thing to do. But to actually take the water off and move it 2 miles towards the Thames to make it safe, with all the flooding risk going from this site down to the Thames, is just absolutely daft. So therefore, there are even more grounds to refuse this application. Thank you.
We've got a motion for refusal. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak before we could put this to the vote? No, I see none. So let's have a vote now. All those for refusal, please put your hands up. All those against? All those abstaining? Councillor Arlett. Okay, thank you. That's carried. Okay, let's turn over the page. We're now moving on to item 6 on your agendas, and it's plans new. And we're moving to P20 S3560. It's a householder application for 44 St Mark's Road. Jodie.
So this falls within St Mark's Road Conservation Area. This proposal would increase the height of the roof and could have some but limited impact on the light and privacy of the adjacent neighbouring properties. I note that those properties are higher than the existing property, and the proposals could impact on the conservation area.
Thank you. Councillor Plant, you have a proposal for me.
Yeah, I was going to go for one of my main concerns when reading it was the height of the roof, but now hearing that the properties on either side are actually higher than the property in question, I find it difficult to use that as a reason to go against it. And 5 metres and 7 metres as boundary spaces respectively are positively vast in Henley Town Centre, so see no reason then other than to approve it.
Okay, thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Gavishak, seconded. Sorry, you seconding?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay.
I've looked at the plans. I quite like the designs of it, and you're right. It's there are a considerable distance between the properties, and as Lawrence has said, the comment about the roof as well. So I'm quite happy to second this for approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We've got a motion for approval. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak? No, I see none. Let's go for the vote then. All those for approval, please raise your hands. All those against? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Councillors, the next two I'm actually going to take together with, I hope that's okay with you. It's the same property, which is 24 Hart Street, and it's an application for advertising and listed building consent. So I'll take them together. It's P20, S2874 and S2875. Jodie.
So I consider the proposed logo and colour of the awning to be inappropriate for the conservation area and grade 2 listed building. It's in a prominent location within Hart Street, and the colouring and lettering would not comply with the shopfront design guide as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, yes, Councillor Plant.
Is the red truly going to be as vibrant as in the picture? I didn't know if that had just come out badly, because that is a terrible graphic if that is the case. And I couldn't agree with you more. But, you know, as a local business owner, I kind of really want to support it, because you're like, if it helps the business and it does well, and they've done so well with the takeaway area out the front of their premises over the last few weeks and months, that you kind of really want to say yes to it. But if that pictorial representation is truly the colour they're using, then I can't help but say no. However, my heart really wants to say yes.
So are you putting a proposal forward, or?
I would like to say yes and hope that the red is not truly an accurate representation of the red they're going for, but I feel it maybe.
So are you putting proposal for approval or refusal?
Approval.
Okay, is that seconded? No. Okay, we must have another proposal out there. Councillor Gavishak.
Well, before I make my proposal, I agree with Lawrence. Yeah, we've got to support businesses in the area, and to ask them to comply with the design guide is going to delay this by a week. They can send in a letter changing the colour scheme, etc., etc., etc. So I think at the moment we've got no alternative. So I will propose refusal, and dearly hope that they come back and comply with the design guide so that they can carry on trading during this difficult time. And you're right, Lawrence, we all want to support businesses in Henley. So I propose refusal, come back in the future.
Okay, thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Clark, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion for refusal. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak?
Maybe Jodie can drop off a nice, here's our shopfront guidance and here's what we'll say yes to leaflet.
Good idea.
We quite like brown or beige. No.
And it's got to be retractable. It's got to be canvas.
Absolutely, yes. Yes, wooden canvas.
Yes, Councillor Reisman.
Yeah, it is worth noting it's polyester and aluminium in the plan, so it's really not suitable material either. It's not just the colour, so it should. It needs to. But I completely agree that we want to work with our businesses, but the best way of doing that is to make sure that the addition is attractive and fits in with our guide.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's put this to the vote then. We've got a motion for refusal. It's been seconded. All those in favour? All those against? Lawrence. Okay, thank you. That's carried. Okay, turning over the page, we've got P20 S3504. It's a householder application for Alfriston, 50 Berkshire Road. Jodie.
Thank you. So bringing the extension closer to the neighbouring property, it looks like the single storey element could overhang onto the neighbouring property. So I've got concerns about the impact on their amenity. However, there's no windows proposed for that side. So those were my comments.
Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor, oh, sorry, I didn't see who's had. Let's have Councillor Gavashak.
I'd like to propose a refusal of this, and my grounds would be it's too near the boundary, and also they have made no account for rain waterfall. If it was further away from the boundary, there would be space for guttering or another solution to the rainwater. But to actually plop it on the boundary and have water deliberately going into their neighbouring property is wrong on all levels. So I propose refusal for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Plants, you seconding? Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion for refusal. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak? Yes, Councillor Arlett.
Yeah, we need to be a wee bit careful. I understand what Councillor Gavashak has said, but I can put a planning application in the side of his house if I wish to, although he's going to do it himself at the moment. But there's nothing stopping me doing that, and also going over the neighbour's boundary. I can get planning permission for it. The question is, can I build it? That's the other question. So for that reason at all, I don't think I support the proposal. It's not our problem to sort out rainwater drainage for an applicant. That's up to him or her if she gets the application passed. So I won't support the proposal for refusal.
Okay, thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? No. Jodie, sorry, yeah, Councillor Plants. Councillor Gavashak, would you like to come back? Both of you like to come back on that one?
I will sum up at the end, please. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Plants.
I was just going to add the fact that it is so close to the, the boundary with the first floor element sliding roof down. It's, it's fairly unneighbourly anyway. So, until it's less unneighbourly and doesn't present drainage issues, I feel the same as Stefan or Councillor Gavashak on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Plants. Okay, well, we've got a motion. It's for refusal. It's been seconded. Councillor Gavashak wants to sum up before we put it to the vote.
Yeah, it's very, very briefly. You're right, Ken, that in fact all these things should be covered by building regulations. But I'm talking about the fundamental design of this building. It has been designed so that water falls into the neighbouring property. So I am making my comments based on the design of it. And if it was modified, it would solve everyone's problems. So thank you, Chair.
Okay, let's put this to the vote then. All those in favour of refusal? All those against?
I know what I'm beat.
Thank you, that's carried. Okay, the next application is P20 S3538. It's a householder application for Hunterdown House, 48 Rotherfield Road. Jodie.
I don't have any comments for this one.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Plants.
Straightforward, yes. Huge plot, easy development.
Thank you. Councillor Gavashak, seconding?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion for approval. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak? No, I see none, so let's put this to the vote. The motion is for approval. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried.
Chair, you're about to move on to the application where I declared an interest. I'm now going to log off completely, leave the meeting. Could somebody text me when you want to come back in, please? Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Councillor Gavashak. Okay, so let's move on to the next application, P20 S3543. It's a householder application, Byron House, 65 Elizabeth Road. Jodie.
So this single story extension is likely to have an impact on the amenity of neighbouring properties. The windows on the northern elevation would look directly into windows of this property, and it is within 1 metre from the boundary. This proposal is on a property that is already tight. It's on a tight plot. Those were my comments.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councillor Plant, you have a proposal?
Refusal, unless they want to come back with an application which has no windows, or if it's a light issue, if they want to come back with opaque, non-opening windows. But again, we can only look at the application in front of us. So on the application here, it's a no. Okay,
thank you. Is that seconded? Yes, Councillor Clark, thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? No, okay. Yes, Councillor Arlett.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak for and against it, because if it is called in, I'd have to speak at a meeting there. But you know, I specifically asked Councillor Gavashak a question. I could have asked other people those questions as well. That, you know, if you've spoken to a neighbour, if a neighbour's come round and spoken to you about an application, and in this case, obviously, you know, Councillor Gavashak, it could be anybody, has found fault in their application, and obviously has got the evidence to show it. I'm just really surprised that the applicant hasn't gone back and redesigned it to suit what would be acceptable to a planning officer. You know, I find that quite strange. It's almost if they're looking for a refusal, then they'll come back and redesign it. But as I say, I won't vote on this or application, Chairman.
Okay, well, we'll note that in the minutes. Thank you, Councillor Arlett. Okay, so we have a motion for refusal. It's been seconded. Let's put this to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Right, has someone contacted Councillor Gavashak that they can come back in, please? That he can come back in, thank you.
Should we leave it a few more minutes?
Shall we? Oh, we can't do that. The meeting wouldn't be the same without him. Okay, let's move on then. Is he back? Let's just give him a moment.
Can we at least make a joke about windows now looking over him or something like that? So he's got a good view.
Don't be mean. He's there. Can someone let him in? That's it.
Thank you.
Kath, can you
the dog's going.
Let the dogs in.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gavashak. Thank you. Right, let's move on to the next application then, which is P20 S3545. It's a householder application for Rotherfield, 30 Rotherfield Road. Jodie.
So yeah, the proposed two-storey garage seems to be excessive and is close to the boundary with the neighbouring property. However, I do note that this is a large plot. If this was allowed, then it should be in condition to ensure that this is for this use and that it's an ancillary to the main property.
Sorry, we've just got some noise I want someone to deal with, please.
Did you catch that?
You might have to repeat some of that because someone sneezed. Yeah, just the last half of it, please. I'm not quite sure we all caught it.
So yeah, it seems to be excessive, but it's on a large plot. If it's allowed, then it should be conditioned to ensure that it's for the use of a garage and ancillary to the main property.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Plant, you have a proposal?
I was going to go for approval, but so long as it does have it's not ancillary use to the house, cannot be used as residential. I know it's something that we're always worried about with garages and kind of a living space put above it. So as long as that is in there, then I see no reason to say no to this property.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Arlott, thank you.
I'll second that. Yeah.
Right, so we've got a motion for approval subject to conditions. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak? No, I see none. So let's put this to the vote then. All those in favour of approval? All those against? Okay, thank you. That's carried. Okay, moving on then to P20 S3566. It's a householder application and it's 11 Makins Road. Jodie. Jodie.
I didn't have any objections to this one.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, any proposals for me? Yes, Councillor Gavishak.
I propose acceptance.
Is that seconded? Councillor Plant, thank you. Okay, so we've got a motion for approval. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak? No, let's go for the vote then. All those in favour of approval, raise your hands. And all those against? Okay, that's carried, thank you. Okay, the next one I have is P20 S3570. It's a householder application and it's 15 Ravenscroft Road. Jodie.
Again, I didn't have any objections to this one.
Thank you. Councillors, any motions? Yes, Councillor Plants.
Recommend approval. Straightforward.
Okay, is that seconding Councillor Gavishak?
Yes, seconded.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we have a motion for approval. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak? No, I see none. So let's put this to the vote. The motion is for approval. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. So over the page on your agendas, councillors, we've got the next one, which is P20 S3660. It's a full application and it's for 253 Grays Road. Jodie.
Thank you. So from the plans, it doesn't look too different from what was considered previously and what was refused by Sodc. The main difference being that the proposal is now for one detached property and two semi-detached properties instead of three detached properties. Plot 1 is positioned slightly further from the boundary, but the overall massing and positioning of the proposal is the same. I could refer in our observations to the design policies and the core strategy and local plan with regards to the overdevelopment of the site, and the policies state that planning permission should not be granted for development where the scale, design and density is inappropriate to the site and which would adversely affect the character of the area. I could also refer to policy D4, which states that development will not be permitted if it would unacceptably harm the amenities of neighbouring property through the loss of privacy and daylight or sunlight. With regards to the concerns over the safety with the vehicle entrance, I could refer to policy T1 in terms of the development impact on the road network. Those were my comments.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, do I have any proposals? Yes, Councillor Plants, please.
Straight up refusal. Viable is a term I get very tired of hearing at planning. It just means developers want to make a larger margin in general, with all due respect to the developer. You know, it hasn't considered the street scene. It sets two new precedents, which would be 3 sites on one plot, to add just one. Lorna and Luke, or Mr. Thompson and Mrs. Walters, did a brilliant job. It also, there are no detached houses, you know, so it's kind of, semi-detached houses. We're changing 2 things. It's unneighbourly and overdevelopment. So just no, and I'll let Stefan add a few bits to it.
Okay, Councillor Gavishak, you're seconding. Would you like to speak?
Yes, I'll second. I agree with all that Lawrence has said. Jodie, could you actually look through the reasons for refusal and actually compare them with this particular application, because I'm sure the reasons why the planning the planning committee refused the last application, there are many parallels with this particular site as well. It's to pick up on Lawrence's point, it's just changing the character of this area. This is detached houses on moderately medium-sized plots, and we've now got over-intensive development on this site, overbearing, unneighbourly, and the introduction of a semi, which should not happen in this particular area. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion for refusal. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak? Yes, Councillor Reisman.
I wasn't at all impressed by the defence of the application by the representative. The previous application was refused on the grounds of the size of the footprint and the massing, and he wasn't able to give any indication that it had been reduced. He didn't seem to know, and the answer is pretty obvious that it's not been reduced, and therefore that objection is still equal. And the suggestion that building two houses there wasn't economically viable was stretched credulity beyond my limits, anyway. So no, I don't think the proposal has any merit in its current form, and it should go to two houses, and it should stress the site much less and protect the trees more.
Thank you, Councillor Reisman. Any other councillor like to speak before I put this to the vote? No, I see none. Okay, so let's put this to the vote then now, councillors. The motion is for refusal. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried with Councillor Arlett abstaining.
So could you note I took no part in the debate as well, please?
Could we note that the decision was unanimous, apart from Ken taking no depart? No. He didn't talk in the debate. Sorry, got there in the end.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the next item, which is P20 S3671 full. This is for numbers 9, 10, and 11, and adjacent land Gardiner Place. Jodie.
I didn't have any objections to this one.
Thank you. Okay, so Jodie's got no observations. Do I have any proposals from councillors? Yes, Councillor Plant.
Yes, straightforward. Yes.
Yeah, seconded by Councillor Gavashak. Okay, so
Yep.
we have a motion for approval. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak? No, I see none. Let's put this to the vote then. All those in favour of approval, hands raised, please. All those against? Okay, thank you. That was carried. Okay, let's move on to P20 S3672. It's a householder application and it's 27 Nicholas Road. Jodie.
I didn't have any observations for that one.
Okay, thank you. Any proposals from councillors? Yes, Councillor Plant.
Yes, minor alterations. They've got nice bits like wood framed windows and stuff like that. So yes.
Okay, thank you. Is that seconded for approval? Councillor Clark, thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? No. Okay, let's put this to the vote then. All those in favour of approval? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. And the next one is P20 S3674, full application for 2A Wootton Road. Jodie.
So the site currently contains a single-storey bungalow with attached garage, but little alteration since its construction. The proposal is to demolish this and erect 2 new dwellings. The scale and massing of the proposed dwellings do seem excessive, and the positioning on the site towards the front of the plot seems inappropriate when the other properties along Wootton Road are set back a good distance, and there would be impact on the character of this area and the overall site. So there are my comments.
Okay, thank you for those. Yes, Councillor Plant, you have a proposal.
Refusal. Much like Councillor Arlett said earlier, when you're given good pre-app advice and you completely ignore it, what do you expect? And in this case, they were given a clear line by which to put this property behind, to which to keep it in the street scene and the kind of the enclosed area at the front. They've completely ignored that. They haven't repositioned it at all. And I think now that we've heard from Mr. Thompson as well, that actually moving it back towards his property would again just increase the overbearing element on his. That if they're going to come forward with a development that is in keeping with the 7.5 metre ridge line as per the surrounding properties, rather than the 8.5 that this property currently is, it's unneighbourly and overbearing and not in keeping with the pre-app advice. So it's a no.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Plant. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Clark. Okay, so we have a motion for refusal. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak? Yes, Councillor Reisman.
I was slightly surprised on the pre-app this decision that the position of the footprint onto the blue line was fairly clear in that it regarded it as in the wrong place. But on the massing and size, it didn't seem to have anywhere near as clear a message. In fact, it seemed content with the size, and it didn't seem to take into account at all the fact that there were bungalows nearby, and it's therefore completely out of keeping with a significant part of the neighbourhood. And so I'd like to emphasise that in case that point gets lost, and it was made by a member of the public. There are the bungalows nearby which are not as high. It is too high as well as too far forward in the plot.
Okay, Councillor Plant, are you happy for those observations to be added to the proposal that you've made?
Yeah, I think it was Mr. Thompson that quoted the exact numbers. It was either 7 metres or 8 metres. It's a metre higher than the kind of surrounding areas. So whatever the exact figure was, yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Okay, councillors, would any other councillor like to speak before we put this to the vote? No, I see none. Okay, so let's go for the vote. All those in favour of refusal, please raise your hands. All those against? And Councillor Arlett is abstaining.
I can't believe the amount of contentious applications tonight.
Yes, I noticed that after I'd accepted subbing for Donna.
You've got a quiet 4 weeks ahead, so you can prepare the call-ins. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay, that last one was carried. Thank you. So over the page 7, we've got P20 S3728. It's a full application and it's for 18 Duke Street. Jodie.
I didn't have any observations for this one.
Thank you. Councillors, any proposals? Yes, Councillor Plant.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Gavashak. Okay, so I have a motion for approval. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak? No. Okay, let's put this to the vote then. All those in favour of approval, please raise your hands. Okay, thank you. That's carried. Okay, the second one is, I'm just wondering if I should take these two together. Should I take them together? Do you think I could take them together, right?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, then let's do that then.
Yeah.
Okay, so the application is a P20 S3768. It's a full application and it's for 24 to 26 Brook House. Jodie.
I didn't have any observations for these two applications.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Plant, you have a proposal?
Bike storage is pretty important, so I'd say yes.
Okay, thank you. Is that seconded? Yes, Councillor Clark, thank you. So I've got a motion for approval. It's been seconded. Would any other councillor like to speak? No. Okay, let's put this to the vote then. All those in favour of approval, please raise your hands. Thank you, that's carried. Right, so that concludes that part of the agenda. Let's move on now to consider objections and any call-in applications on item number 7, please. Yes, Councillor Gavashak.
Well, as Councillor Arlett said, yes, there are a few on this. So I would like called in, with permission of the committee, 18 Harcourt Close,
Yeah.
Crossways,
Yeah.
which is the next one, 253 Grays Road, and also to a Wootton Manor, Wootton Road.
Okay, would any other councillors like to speak? Yes, Councillor Reisman. Can you turn your mic on?
I'd like to have called in P20 S3 543HH Byron House.
Okay. Okay. Do we need to vote on these, councillors? I mean, they were actually.
Yeah, I think we should.
They were all. Yeah. Let's do a vote then. Okay. So just to summarise, then, I'm looking for the committee's approval on calling in the following: 18 Harcourt, Crossways, 253 Grays Road, 2A Wootton Road, and Byron House. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to number 8, which is to note the decision notices which have been issued by South Oxfordshire District Council. Any observations there at all? No, thank you. So that's noted. And number 9 is to a certificate of lawful development, P20 S3844 LDP, and that's Harpston Grange. Now, I do think this is the very first time in Henley that we've seen one of these. Would you concur, councillors and officers? Yeah. Yeah? Oh, I'm talking to myself here.
Oh, yeah. I'm nodding.
Yes, Michelle.
Nodding in your heads.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay,
whatever
so
you're talking about.
yeah. Okay, Chair, yes. Okay, number 10, councillors, appeal decision. We're to note the following from the Planning Inspectorate. And I don't know about you, but I was actually pleased to see that the Planning Inspectorate are still giving the weight to privacy concerns that they are. So, yeah, good decision, I think, from the Planning Inspectorate. Any comments from the councillors?
Oh, excellent.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Holler. Councillor Holler, somebody's got something to watch on TV tonight.
Oh, fine, you carry on.
Councillor Plant, did you want to say something?
Yeah, sorry, it's actually not on this one, but just this decision made me think about it. There's the property, is it on Bellevue or a road up around there where it's being constructed with a ridge line that's much higher than it should have been in planning?
Yes.
Is that still going? Because either have I missed it or is that just ongoing?
Are you talking about Western Road?
Yes.
Yes, I walked past that site today, actually. It's pretty big, isn't it?
Well, it's the one where they've gone too high, and then they recently submitted a planning application for decking and a platform out of the back. And we
No. That one hasn't come up yet. I know which one you mean. No, I was talking about the one opposite, which was refused by the Henley Town Council but accepted by SODC. It's currently got some awning over it. It's on the other side of the street. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to number 11, which is neighbourhood planning. We're just to receive the minutes of the neighbourhood plan subcommittee. But we do have to approve that. I'll just actually read this to you. I think it's better than me summing it up. To approve that Company 3 are appointed to carry out a review of the conservation area. This is to cover grouping 3, the Henley Main Conservation Area, St Mark's Road and Reading Road Conservation Areas and Harpston, subject to availability of funding. And just so that you're aware, St Andrews Road comes under the St Mark's Conservation Area as well. Okay, so all those in favour of approving this request, please raise your hands. Okay, all those against? Okay, that's carried, thank you. Right, so the next item on the agenda is number 12, SODC planning update. I suppose you all had a chance to read the notice from Adrian Duffield. Jodie and Councillor Arlett, did you want to actually make any statements about these changes?
Yeah, I was going to bring it up actually on the, I can make it, I was going to bring it up on progress report, but yeah, only basically we now have, that's why I keep abstaining now, because the local town councillor stroke district councillor can now speak and vote at planning meetings at SODC. We used to do this 20 odd years ago. It worked pretty well. I know there are other district councils around the area where that happens. For some reason, SODC didn't wish to do it, but I think as we explained, it all happened at full council and we managed to win the vote 18-17 with one abstention. I think we started on this in 2019 and we kept going and going and eventually we won. Thanks to the chairman of that committee, Councillor Gavashak, that obviously helped us on our way. So I think that's a big plus now. So at least we can go there and speak and vote. Because what was happening in the past, although we were speaking as a town or a district council, specifically as a district councillor, you could speak, but when it came to the debate, you knew some things weren't correct with what were being said, but you couldn't do anything about it because you'd already spoken. At least now, you know, a district councillor can correct something which can change the vote. So I think that we should take I think we should be really satisfied what's taken place there. The other one which I'm not too happy about is the parish councillors. The parish councils are struggling because unless they have a district councillor at their meetings, they don't call the application in. Although it may differ from SODC's view, it can be delegated to the head of planning. So you know the parish councils have fallen a wee bit short on this, but as town councillors, we've come out of it pretty well. I don't know if Councillor Gavashak would like to say anything, or Councillor Clark.
I'll say something at the end. Lawrence.
Yeah, let's keep it in order. So, Councillor Plant.
No, I was just going to say congratulations. That's it really is a great win. It's something that we've discussed for a while and something definitely newsworthy if either the Standard or the Herald want to run with it, just so that any residents know that that is now the case and that we have a greater voice at district. I think is something really, truly fantastic and something that's been, you know, out of kilter now for some time. So really, really great result, guys.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Eastman.
Yeah, it is good and right. For years, it seemed absolutely baffling to me that we elect councillors who to represent a ward, who know and understand their ward, and they're prevented from voting on issues which affect the people who elected them. And I think if you asked any resident of Henley whether they thought that was right, they'd accuse you of making a statement that couldn't possibly be true. It was the most absurd situation, and I'm delighted that it's been reversed. Can I talk about the other issue, which is about the delegated powers to officers?
Yeah, of course.
Can I just first ask a question? I don't quite understand what this paragraph means in the halfway down page 32. It's the paragraph starting, however, as a result of this practice. And it's the last couple of lines that I don't understand. Partly because it risks applicants choosing to appeal against non-determination, taking the decision out of the council's hands. So I'm sorry if I'm not a regular on this committee. What does that mean, appealing against non-determination? Does that mean that cases time out because the queue of applications is too long? Because that seems to be the concern that Sir Adrian Duffield is expressing here. Because what he says, as a result of this practice, we are now in a position where more than 50 planning applications need to be referred to the planning committee. This is an untenable situation. Well, the job of the planning committee is to make planning decisions. The job of councillors is to stand on committees and make decisions. And you know, democracy is about councillors making decisions. And there are certain cases where officers are. It is appropriate to delegate decisions. But what's happening here is that decisions where town councils who have registered an objection are having their views deliberately overruled, or not even given a chance to be heard. And I think that's as wrong as the other issue, which is that individual councillors couldn't speak. And
okay, let's just pause there for a moment and have Councillor Arlett address some of your concerns there.
Yeah, I did try and explain that, so I didn't quite get there. Basically, what happens is that parish councils, you know, just say Rotherfield Grays as a prime example, just say they have a planning meeting and their view on an application is different to SODC's officer. In theory, that could go to the planning committee. But what's happened is that now the planning officer has been given delegated powers because that application wasn't called in by a district councillor. And as I was saying, as I'm at this meeting this evening, you know, you're calling in applications, and tomorrow morning I will send those off to an officer to say they need to be called in. But as I say, the parish councils, the small parish councils where a district councillor is not there, the application hasn't been called in. So there's about 70 odd applications at the moment waiting to be determined. 50 of those are from parish councils where they haven't been called in by a district councillor. So now the head of planning will make a final decision on that. He will either make a decision on to approve an application, refuse an application, or send it to a planning committee. But the majority of the 50, I will guarantee he would make decisions one way or the other, and they won't go to committee.
Right, let's hear from Jodie.
I just wanted to clarify the non-determination that you mentioned. So non-determination is when the local planning authority, so SODC, fails to determine the application within the statutory period. So that's either 8 or 13 weeks. Very occasionally, this is Secretary of State. Where a valid application has not been determined within this period, the applicant has a right to appeal to the Secretary of State against non-determination. If the applicant has not exercised this right of appeal and the application remains undetermined after 26 weeks, then the fee is paid back and it's refunded to the applicant. So that's what they mean by non-determination. I hope that helps out.
Okay, any other questions from councillors or statements? Councillor Gavishak.
Yeah, just going back to the fact that now Ken can actually speak on applications, just very, very briefly. Ken kindly, as I said, I had a little to do with it because I was conducting the constitutional review of which this was a part, but actually the great credit goes to Ken. If you have a chance to actually look back at the debate at the district council and actually see it, it was an absolutely brilliant example of pure clinical logical reasoning as to why this should happen. I mean, Ken and I have sat in on planning committees, well, Ken more than I, where we've been absolutely gobsmacked by and it would never happen here with Jodie because she talks a load of sense, where planning officers at SODC actually just say things that are completely and utterly wrong. And that sways the opinion of the committee. Now, having the local member there to actually say, hang about, this is wrong, what you're saying on a particular application, is actually invaluable. And the local member definitely has an input, which is very, very strong. So the credit goes to Ken. As Ken alluded, it was very close, but we got there. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gavishak. I mean, part of the reason why there's such a backlog of planning applications outstanding is because it took them such a long time to get online. I mean, we had lockdown in March, and they didn't get online until May, was it? Sometime in May? It's an extraordinarily long amount of time, and it cost them dear in terms of time. Anyway, yes, congratulations. I add my congratulations to all of the other councillors who have spoken. And in fact, it's one of the reasons why I became a councillor. And that's another story. Anyway, so let's move on.
Sorry, that was my fault. I do apologise. I talked you into it.
Oh, thank you. How nice of you, Councillor Arlett, to point that out. Okay, item number 13 is the progress report for applications called in, pages 35 to 36. Let's have a quick look at this. We've got some updates, haven't we? Let's look at the first one, P20 SO510 full.
That's going to a site visit.
Right, okay, thank you. And the next one, P20, we've actually just spoken about this one, but we've called it in again, 18 Harcourt. Yeah?
Yeah.
And the other one is, now we actually, with Treetops, we've withdrawn our objection to that one. So what happens with this one here on this progress report? Treetops, P20 S2833.
Well, it's still under consideration.
Yeah, okay, but do we need to have it called in still, because it's been, well, it's just an outline application.
Yeah, see, on this one, we've called it in because we've got it down for approval, where they may well put it for refusal.
It's the opposite. Yeah. I've got you. Yeah. Okay. Any other observations, councillors, or statements?
Number 1, Elizabeth Close, and a new application's come in for that one to build 2 houses instead of, is it 3 or 4 before? But I think I had it down for 4. They've now got another application for 2.
Okay, moving on then to the last item on the agenda, which is the progress report. Any updates, please?
The sorry, on the road schemes, the Grays Road's done. Gravel Hill and Swiss Farm, they are going to come pretty soon. The speed count on Gravel Hill was done last week, and subject to that, there will be a crossing scheme coming forward for Gravel Hill and also for Swiss Farm as well. And I anticipate that will go to consultation during the end of November, early December. There was a capacity issue at OCC, so it's taken a bit longer than I wanted it to, but it's coming through now.
Okay, thank you.
And sorry, and it's me as well. Residents parking, Northfield End. I have asked for the Northfield End to be progressed as a residents parking scheme, and the Ancastle, we held an informal consultation on this, and the vote was split. 15 people wanted the residents parking scheme at Ancastle Green, and 15 didn't. So therefore, I will be writing to the residents that unless something materially changes, we won't be progressing that particular scheme forward, unless the Ancastle Residents Association can actually get more support, because there's no point in wasting money on us that will be turned down. Ken might want to add something.
But I think, as Stephen said, he got 15 for and 15 against, but 70 didn't even bother to respond. So I think you'd have to basically say that they didn't wish it to go forward.
Okay, so that's ongoing. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, Councillor Garishak, the zebra crossing by Tesco's, the flashing lights haven't been working for months. Can you get that sorted, please? Because I've had various people speaking to me about it.
I have put it on Fix My Street. I'll ask Councillor Ian Clark, have you put it on Fix My Street? I can't spot all the problems in Henley, and the best way, well, for all councillors, I won't just sort of pick on you, Ian. So, and that was, sorry, that was the wrong word. I didn't mean to say pick on you. If you put problems on Fix My Street, it really does have a very, very good success rate in actually clearing them up. So, but Ian, yes, I have put it on Fix My Street, and I hope it'll be fixed pretty soon. Yes, you're right.
Thank you very much.
It absolutely needs doing. You're right.
Thank you.
Michelle, I've got one more thing to add, which is not on the agenda, but it really is an informative, if you'll allow me.
Yes, of course, yeah.
You haven't got a clue what it is, but anyway. I will be sending an email out to all councillors tomorrow. And I'm showering praise around. I mean, Ken's done a brilliant job. Other members of this committee have done a brilliant job, but I'm going to praise our chair, Michelle Thomas. Michelle has fought valiantly for a footpath which would link Mill Lane with the Newtown Industrial Estate through the Manor Care Home, and then this footpath enables people to quietly walk from Mill Lane through the footpath, Manor Care Home, through Newtown Industrial Estate, the back of Invesco Perpetual, down the station car park, right into the centre of town, without going on main roads. And what is there not to like on that particular thing? The county have approved this footpath, but the county have put this out to consultation, and of course people can object. Now, I'm sure that we want the footpath, so I'm appealing to all councillors, and walkers are welcome, and the Greener Henley, and I'll be sending out emails pretty soon about this. Could you actually get emails into the county to say, we want this footpath? Because I guess Manor Care Home will or may object to it going through their property, mainly because they would have to move a building, a small building, but they'd have to move a small building because they've actually built over a legitimate footpath. We told them about it, we informed them before it was built, and they went ahead. So they'll just have to do it.
Well, their architects even actually allowed for this possible footpath on the plans. And how that got overturned, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, anyway, well done to Michelle for pursuing this. Brilliant job. Excellent.
Yes, yeah, thank you. And it's actually I've actually done this with a resident of Mill Lane called Karen Rutter, so congratulations to her as well, because she valiantly collected all of the evidence, you know, in the very first stages. I mean, this has been actually going on for 4 years now, I think. Okay, yeah, so we've got 42 days from, I guess, from this week to be heard. So we've got some time to act.
And sorry, when I send the email out, it's got all the links. It's got the links to the plans. It's got the links to an email address for your comments. So could you forward it to all and sundry? It would be brilliant if we had 400 people in Henley saying, yes, we want it, and maybe one objection. So.
Indeed. Okay, let's get it circulated on social media and WhatsApp groups and all sorts. Okay, councillors, thank you very much for your time this evening. It has been a very long meeting, so thank you for your patience. And I'll see you again in